As Nick likes to say, there are all kinds of things going on in the world. And actually, Steve is out. I think he'll be out today and tomorrow, but he'll be back from PBS on Friday and all of that. So we're looking forward to that conversation. But right now, there are all kinds of things going on in the world, including the debate around Roe versus Wade, the leaked document that says that they will be overturning that particular historical ruling that is over 50 years old and all of that. So that is in the news. And of course, there's even a bill to have abortion rights put out there nationwide, even though most people say that that bill will fail. So the Senate is on track to hold a key vote today on a bill aimed at preserving access to abortion nationwide. And definitely it looks like that landmark 73 ruling will be overturned if the leaked draft is correct. And the vote is expected to fail amid widespread Republican opposition to the measure. And as a result, the Senate will fall short of the support needed to overcome the 60 vote threshold needed to pass most legislations in the chamber. The bill's failure to advance is set to underscore how Democrats are severely limited in what they can achieve with their narrow Senate majority, even as the party faces enormous pressure to take action on abortion rights amid a fear that Roe versus Wade will soon be struck down. And definitely there are even some folks within the party that are not really saying how they will vote, even though they voted in the past against certain things, such as key moderate Democratic Senator Joe Manchin, who represents the red state of West Virginia and has previously described himself as pro-life and proud of it. And he voted with Republicans in opposition to the bill when it came before the Senate back in February. So far, he hasn't said how he plans to vote this time around and all of that. And of course, on the Republican side, there are some abortion rights supporters who have introduced their own legislation. Senator Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski. So definitely on both sides of the aisle, there is conversation going on this particular issue. So it'll be interesting what happens in that regards. And then in other news, there has definitely been conversations around Trump's power or lack thereof based on two votes that took place recently. So, yesterday, both with West Virginia, where Steve is has some roots in and everything, and Nebraska had their votes, and they had vastly different kind of results as far as Trump's endorsement power. So apparently Trump suffered his first big loss of 2022 in Nebraska, where his chosen candidate for governor in the Republican primaries lost to the state's party choice. He fared better in West Virginia, where his pick in a hotly contested GOP House primary cruised to victory in a battle of Republican incumbents, one backed by the former president, the other endorsed by the state's GOP governor and Democratic Senator Joe Manchin. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this political stuff plays out as well, because definitely a lot of people will be paying attention to the political race. And of course, the most important news that is out there for a whole lot of folks is what's going on over there in the Ukraine. And apparently those folks over there in Russia are trying to break the supply chain. Sounds like that's what they're trying to do by definitely hitting with missiles the ports of Odessa in an attempt to disrupt the supplies. Haven't had much other success in any other thing that they've tried, so I don't think this is going to work either, because the Ukrainians seem to have a lot of resolve, and that's just my personal opinion. So I think that they will probably not succeed in that regards as well. But I'm going to bring in my man that is an expert in this kind of conversation, none other than Sasha Starr. See if he agrees with me and all of that, or if he's worried about the attacks that are taking place on the supply chain over there in Odessa and all of that. So you heard about some of the news, and maybe Nick will come back and he might have some opinions legally about some of the things going on with abortion and some of the other issues that I just brought to the attention of our public and all of that. But Sasha, glad to see you. Glad to see that you are doing well and all along those lines. But what are your thoughts about this latest attack? Because apparently they are trying to disrupt the supply chain. And I know that in any military conflict, even though I didn't serve in the military, I did have relatives that served, and I do understand some of the tactics of war. And definitely one of the things that you often try to do is disrupt the supply chains, particularly if you are getting aid and support from your Western allies and all of that. So what is your take on the latest news on Ukraine and this latest attempt to disrupt the supplies?
Okay, Putin is resolved by now to have a long, really long war. It could be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years if needed, and he wants to exhaust everybody, all Western countries and not so Western countries, and just anybody by cutting supply of grain from Ukraine, by keeping the territory, whatever he could grab, and trying to grab even more, banking that in the long run, West will simply get tired of sanctions, of sending billions of dollars to Ukraine, and so on. So West say, hell with him. Okay, enough is enough. Okay, let him do whatever he needs to do, and so on. And that's what he's banking on. And he's so far he was pretty successful gambler, and it seems to me that maybe he will continue to win. Who knows?
So you think that he's just going to continue this attempt? And you just mentioned it though. You're thinking that this war could last almost as long as what we saw in Afghanistan. If we can make a comparison, or in some of these other wars that have gone on, because I think a lot of people were thinking that this would be a quick war and it would be done quickly and everything. But it sounds like we just need to be prepared to possibly be dealing with this even in 2023, as we are now in the month of May and everything. So, is that your take, that we will probably be dealing with this for some time, or do you think that the Ukrainian resolve will actually possibly end this war, say before the summer, or should we just be looking at this going on
Ukraine,
into
Ukrainian,
the long
Ukrainian
haul?
resolve, Ukrainian resolve could be successful only in case of continuous Western help. And Putin is calculating that that's not going to last forever. At some point, West will simply get tired of it all and will cut its supply of modern weaponry and financial capital, so on. So here's what Putin is trying to do. He's trying to hold on what he's already grabbed, and it's quite substantial territory so far. So now he's happy just to hold on to it. So for Ukrainians attack and get them out of that is incredibly more difficult than to hold to a territory, because to attack you need 3 to 1 a man advantage. And it seems to me now the war is at such uh, mm, con, condition that no one has 3 to 1 advantage, not Russians nor Ukrainians. Now, Ukrainians could overcome that by having a lot of modern weapons coming from the West. So Russians are trying to cut the chain of supply to make sure that they will destroy the railway stations and so on. So it will be much more difficult to supply these modern weapons to Ukrainians who need it in east area of the country, and they're coming from the west, so they have to travel through whole country. Um, so so if Russia could get this, and this is what they've done for years, everywhere in Georgia, in Abkhazia, and even 8 years ago in Ukraine, they will try to have conflict frozen the way it is now. So no one can make any progress. Um, and it's neither peace or war. It's kind of a holding pattern, and he is playing for time. He believes that the time is on his side, and the longer it will be in that condition, whereas 1 year, 3 years, or let's say even better, 10 years, the more likely him to grab and remain on these territories.
Well, yep. So it looks like we're in for the long haul on that and everything. I know you mentioned the investment show, which is another one of your passions and everything. And I don't know if Shaquille's going to come up and he might have some thoughts about this. And I'm hoping that Nick will come back, because I know a lot of times we've been talking on this network about how bad the economy is and how things are going here in the U.S. and even globally, partially because of the pandemic, partially because of supply chain issues and a number of other factors as well. And I was actually reading an article recently that said that because of retirement things and retirement plans, that for tens of millions of Americans, it is actually a good time right now because they have planned ahead and that they are actually doing well and all along those lines. So it may not be as bad as some people put it out to be and all along those lines, because that was actually in a recent New York Times article that I had seen where they were talking about that things may be better, particularly for those that have done successful financial planning and have done the things with their retirements, their IRAs, and a number of other things that you can do to improve your life and all of that. So the article was actually called "For Tens of Millions of Americans, the Good Times Are Right Now." So I was just wondering your take on that, and maybe Shaquille, because I did see he was here earlier, might want to come up and add his thoughts as well. But as one that is involved in that investment space, and I'm imagining it's the same in Canada as well. What is your thoughts for those that are saying that, hey, there might actually be some good things in the lining for folks if they have done things correctly and everything, and even some of the bosses they're saying are giving kind of like benefits that can help them retire and be in good shape, and retirement accounts are up, and definitely they're saying that for now this could be a good financial time, even though we know there are a lot of people that are struggling financially as well. But I was just wondering your take, because I think that this article was written on yesterday.
Among all financial assets, people are talking a lot about stocks, bonds, gold, even wines or arts or everything. And anybody uh, is brave enough to say something good about cash.
Hmm.
Apparently, cash is also a part of financial instruments. And in times like this, when stock market is tanking almost every day, especially high tech component, uh, there is nothing wrong to keep even substantial part of your assets in cash, because cash is not going down. I mean, in the long run, with inflation and all that stuff, that may not be true. But as the instrument to preserve your wealth, it's not a bad thing. However, there is a very interesting article that I just read in the morning in mm, Business Insider, I think that's publication, and there is a talk about US abandoning cash altogether, that everything
Mm.
is paid electronically. So it will be a huge blow to savers. So when you are making fun of people who are buying a large mattress and keep their cash in the mattress, it could be a severe blow. It will wipe out all their savings. And also, in my opinion, the government then will have an access, and they can precisely see what each individual and each family is doing financially. So it will be very easy to tax them and collect a tax and so on. So I'm not saying that it's going to happen tomorrow or maybe even next week, but the thought of that is making people horrified. Just imagine that there's severe living. Actually, if you think about last time I was in Europe, in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, a lot of these countries they hardly use any cash. They
Mm.
are paying for even just like a glass of water. If it's a paid service, you are paying with a credit card. People just don't use cash in these countries, and it was several, 5, 6 years ago. So I would
Yeah,
imagine today
yeah.
it's even more so.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And apparently, this article was saying that for the 158 million who are employed, the prospects haven't been this bright since man landed on the moon. And as many as half of those workers have retirement accounts that were fattened by the bull market. So they were talking about folks that were definitely going into home ownership and things along those lines, because we do know that an asset can be if you have property and things in that sense. So they were actually saying that for those that were smart enough to get homes and all of that, that could be adding to this particular boom that they're talking about for certain citizens, because they were saying that there are 83 million owner occupied homes in the United States, and at the rate they have been increasing in value, a lot of them are in fact a giant piggy bank that families live inside, because you can use that in order to make some investments later on. So they were saying that those that are smart enough to be homeowners, that is actually a great benefit to them, and there are quite a few folks in this particular part of the world that is the case. I don't know if that's as much of the case in Canada. So just wondering your perception of home ownership, and if a lot of people are actually buying homes there in Canada, and if that is helping the Canadian economy.
Yeah, home buying is favorite activity among Canadians. They all love to buy homes or apartments or just anything like real estate. It's becoming a little bit softer in the last couple of months, I think. But the big picture is still the same. It's sound investment. At least your primary residence, or you must have that. A lot of people are buying second and third houses or apartments to rent them out or whatever is due to. So it's quite significant economic activities there. Um, Now, about some rare, for example, pieces of art, wines. A lot of people are looking into that investment, but I still believe that your best investments, historically speaking, believe it or not, are still in stocks. The only thing is you cannot allow yourself gamble and buy some questionable quality stocks. You have to buy. Um, Today on the program, I will have this author of the book Monday Morning Millionaire, where he suggested very simple strategy, and it's tried and been over for years. You buy index S&P 500 index fund, and you just hold it. So if your index, if market is doing well, obviously your portfolio will go higher. If it's not doing so well, it will go lower. But your expenses are minimal. Uh, they have excellent record keeping facilities. So you have for a fraction of cost, because commissions are very, very low these days. It's almost negligible. So in a way, it's becoming do it yourself investment. It's effective. It could be it could be taught to a grade four student, and he believes that, and I would agree that S&P 500 fund will always, at least 90% as the minimum cases, outperform the money managers. And you know why? Because money managers have to buy themselves sandwiches, coffee, they have to park their car somewhere. And who is paying for all that? You are the one who is paying for all that. So you have the same chance to outperform the market with or without money managers. With money managers, you already know that even before you make any money, you're going down with their fees and so on, which who knows what it's worth. And in the meantime, when you do it yourself, you not only avoid all these fees, but you also on your way to at least mirror the S&P 500, which is all America. S&P 500, and because all the leading companies in in America, they're all doing business worldwide. A lot of these companies are doing in China, they're active in India, in Europe, everywhere. So you are buying the best of the best 500 companies in the United States of America. What can beat this? I'm not. I'm not sure what there is to beat it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One of the other things that's going on in the world, and I'd love to hear your take on this, and this might also get Shaquille to get on camera and everything, is that definitely we're seeing some of the countries that are more socialistic in nature and everything kind of borrowing from some of the language of the left, and the left from America. So apparently today, whenever the Venezuelan government shares messages on social media, and their leader Maduro speaks in public, many observers have noticed that he is increasingly relying on progressive language familiar to so-called young Western leftists. In definitely a lot of the speeches in the past where he had a lot of macho imagery and stuff like that, he has now co-opted the language of feminism, LGBTI rights, the environment, and other things along those lines. So we do know that that's been going on here in the United States, where people are trying to appeal to one group or another, and apparently that's even going on over there in Venezuela. As a matter of fact, they were talking about a recent visit that some of the folks that are considered part of that bloc, it's a small bloc, but they are part of that bloc, had when they went to visit him, because apparently there was 8 Americans, including some of our political folks that were over there visiting. I believe this was last year, and definitely they were saying that Venezuela was looking to strengthen ties of brotherhood and solidarity with the American people, with the activists fighting for democracy. But actually, the Americans that were invited weren't diplomats, because the U.S. cut ties with that government like 3 years ago. Rather, they were representatives of the Democratic Socialists of America, the rising American political organization that includes 4 House Democrats among its members. So they were saying how much apparently some of them were impressed by Maduro, because Austin Gonzalez, one of the delegates, said, "Who I met is not a dictator. I met a humble man who cares deeply about his people," and all of that. So definitely it doesn't seem like that is what our government would be saying and all of that. But there are some that are apparently are trying to definitely have a different attitude toward that particular government and all of that. But I was just wondering your thoughts and your whole ideas of folks that might be trying to borrow some of the language from our folks in the left of the political spectrum.
Hmm. It's an interesting question. You know, my opinion, to tell you the truth, is that all this political talks about the LGBTQ community, their rights, the Black Lives Matter and their rights, and all that stuff, this is very divisive, unproductive, and essentially it's basically okay. Let's see, you're saying that okay, Black Lives Matter. Okay, so you're not saying that all lives matter, including black, of course. No, you're saying that Black Lives Matter, not white, not Asian people rights or Hispanics rights or anything. You are creating a sort of a new class and very separate from all others. So now that's nothing but divisive issue. The same thing as the LGBTQ community, that they have some special rights or so on. How come? How can they have very special rights when they are minority and mm, until probably 21st century in many countries they were actually persecuted and beaten severely. For example, in Russia. In Russia, these people were persecuted and beaten, sometimes on the street, sometimes in the open. Hopefully, it's not happening now and should not happen by all means. But to create some kind of a special class of these people that demand certain rights or so on, which wouldn't be available to other people who are majority, obviously. So that's the whole concept is just ridiculous.
But
They
I
should
think,
have the same rights as everybody else. I agree with this, but nothing more than that.
I
That's
mean,
how.
I would think that you're probably right in that sense, but I mean, the general argument is that in some cases there have not been enough fairness in certain things and all of that. So it's sometimes what they call leveling the playing field and things of that nature, because there have definitely been what is called systematic racism and things in that sense that have existed for a while. So I think part of what Black Lives Matter, and I don't claim to be a member of that organization, but I do know people within it, is kind of like bringing up some of the things that were going on with policing, with maybe housing and other issues where there had been some unfair practices. And I mean, I think most people would agree that the court system and the criminal justice system of the United States is definitely not equitable when it comes to some of the things that go on in the way that people are treated when they go to the court system. And there are probably a disproportionate amount of people that are of the minority community that are in the prisons versus their population. And I don't think personally that that other groups are not committing as much crime, but they just might be able to afford better lawyers and things along those lines. So that is part of what the conversation is there are there ways to make it a good system? Because yes, the United States system is the best in the world in my mind and everything, but there can be improvements to even the best of systems. So I
Mark,
think
this
that's
is,
what a lot of people are saying.
I'm sorry, it's incredible distraction of people who have to mind their own business, take care of their families. And they are trying to infiltrate them with the thought that the Black Lives Matter, Black lives is more valuable than whites or something like this. I even don't understand what they're trying to prove. This completely wrong approach. It's divisive approach, and that should be just gone. Really, it went a little bit too far, in my opinion.
I mean, you can say that, and you can also say that people can take the opposite extreme and they can start putting other things on there. I mean, I've got a friend of mine, and I actually do consider him a friend. It is one of my neighbors. It's the person that I actually do the cat sitting for. And if you look at his truck, it actually says Black Trucks Matter, or something like that. But it's definitely his play on the Black Lives Matter conversation because he's got a black truck, so he's saying that they matter as well. So I understand a little bit of his humor when he uses that and all along those lines. And I actually think he's a minority. I think he may be Latin American, if I remember correctly. I know his girlfriend is of mixed descent, meaning that
You're
she
talking
has
about
two societies.
clowns. Then it should be part of our entertainment column. It's not really a political issue to
Well,
me. It's construct
racism sells in the United States. I mean, it's there's a lot of good issues to talk about, especially these three, which is what our elections are based on. These three things: guns, abortion, and immigration. Nothing,
No,
Sasha. Nothing about economics. Nothing about our school system failing. Nothing about the fact that 70% of the population can't get a hold of $1,000 in case of emergency. No, 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 no.
but,
Because
but
you
Nick,
get
did you hear the story
donations,
that I
man.
said earlier? Because earlier, before you were gone
What?
and everything, there was an article. I think it was in yesterday's New York Times, and I'd love to hear Shaquille's thoughts about this as well. Because what they're saying is that there is a significant amount of people, millions actually, that are now have bought houses, have got retirement plans, have got other things. So they were actually saying that in some cases and in certain people, this is actually the golden ages because they were saying that they are doing quite well because they were smart enough to buy a house, and the house is pretty much like their private piggy bank. Because if you got a house, I mean, I don't have one; I live in an apartment, but my mom does, my dad does, and I do know that that is a tool that you can use to cash out to some
You
degree
can.
later on and
Yeah.
everything
You
where the house is
basically,
located and things of that nature. So
you're
that's basically what they were saying is that a lot of people have actually have a better
you're absolutely
environment
correct.
than even what you have said in the past. And I'm not saying that that's not true because I
Absolutely
do know
correct.
people that have a hard time getting $1,000, but there are a
You're
lot of
you're
people is what the article was saying, and I found that to be an interesting contrast to what you say that are able
right.
to actually have access in housing, which then can
Sure.
give them greater economics later
You're
on because it's typically the golden age for those,
absolutely
and that was
right.
across races and across every classes and across a lot of well, maybe not so much class,
You
but
won
definitely
the
across ethnicities.
you won the bloody lottery. As a matter of fact, my son was very fortunate. He bought a home for 250,000, then rented it out and bought another one for 500. Well, the 250 went to 500,000, and the 500,000 went to 800,000. So all of a sudden, he's got what is it, 550,000 in unrealized capital gains that isn't taxed. He's got a piggy bank of over $500,000. Now, what did he do to get the $500,000 piggy bank? Bought two houses in the last 2 years. That's it. Now, in the meantime, the regular working people have to go to work every day, 9 to 5, come back. On average, they make 30 to 50,000 a year in the United States. Do it for 10 years, then have Social Security and Medicare taken out of their account at 15.3%. They never get their mark ever. Okay, but if you're lucky and you hit the lottery because you just bought at the right time, Yeah, you make $500,000. I mean, and that's the realities of our economic system here in the United States. So
Nick,
timing is everything, and I got to thank Sasha for getting me out of the market about a month ago. Okay, because I'm heavily into cash. I unfortunately I'm double booked again for that. I'm going to be on the Modern Investing Show, which is getting a lot of good reviews now that you guys are predicting the market correctly. Because my
Well,
question
and
always
this comes
is,
back to Shaquille. I'm glad
oh
you
my,
were here,
it's timing is
Shaquille, as
everything.
well.
When do you get back in the market? The question is, okay, I got out at the right time thanks to Sasha. Okay, now the question is, when do you get back in? Because I've
Nick,
heard different
I'll tell you
opinions.
when you're
No,
gonna.
Nick, I hear you and
At some
everything.
point, you will have to get back. Sorry,
Well,
Mark. You will have
Shaquille's
to
in the
get back.
market all the time, so he didn't.
I'll tell you when.
Yeah,
I read article I mentioned earlier in the Business Insider that there is a plan to get rid of cash
yeah,
in the
Mhm.
United States.
sure.
I want to tell you something. Several years ago, 5, 6 years ago, I was in Scandinavia, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and they don't use cash. You want to
I
buy
mean,
coffee for $2, you pay by credit card or by debit card or
no,
something.
and
They
Sasha, we
don't
saw
have
that to some degree during the pandemic because a lot of businesses did not take cash. They did not want to handle money because money, of course, was going to have different things that you would be handling germ wise and everything. Not that you're not going to get germs on a credit card as well. So I don't know the logic of that, but I think it's because it was more items versus one credit card versus several bills. So I get that in that sense and everything. But I remember that there was definitely several establishments that would not do that. And of course, we do see that more and more people are getting, and I'm not saying it's a good thing, but they are getting into crypto. And I've even heard speculations. Part of the appeal of crypto
crypto.
is that it is
With all due
decentralized. Hold
respect,
on a second, Sasha.
crypto
Part of
is
the
a
appeal of
big
crypto is it is
dog.
decentralized. But what I'm hearing is that even though it's decentralized, I'm hearing that people, and this could be coming back to what you were talking about, Sasha, because I've heard that even of like the United States may be finding a way to regulate it and to actually make it a controlled item in terms of the fiscal side. So there may be actually, I don't know if it's going to be a crypto bank. I don't know if it's going to be, Bank of Crypto or whatever, but that it could be that this is going to be regulated. And I've even heard that from crypto supporters that they are concerned that the US and other countries are going
Mark,
to find a way to regulate it.
Mark, are you aware of any crypto supporters? Are they still alive, or they're all been already
Yeah.
taken
The
from
people
There are
side?
that
tons of
sell,
crypto supporters.
the
Yes,
There
tons.
people
are.
that,
Yes.
yeah, the ones that
Look
sell
at
crypto, the
Coinbase. It went
suckers.
down from $400
Yeah.
to 53 in a matter of a few
I know,
weeks.
but people are not looking at that the way you are. You're looking at it from a stock standpoint, and I agree with you. That's what they should be doing. But too many people are caught up in the conversation about it being a deregulated form of currency, and therefore that's why so many people are into it, including my artist friends and including people that are into NFTs and all of this other kind of stuff, because they're saying that it eliminates the middleman because they didn't want, like, whether if you're thinking music, that would be the agent and some of the other things
You
that are
know
out
what?
there as well.
The historically,
Ah,
politically, philosophically, probably they are right. But very soon they will be in a poorhouse. I mean, they will lose
I
everything what
agree.
they own. They still will believe that the crypto is the greatest things and sliced bread. It helps people to eliminate or collect, or I don't know what else they're going to come up with. They will be in a poorhouse. Let them to grab anything, whatever still possible to grab, even if they will get 5 cents on a dollar. Take 5 cents on a dollar. Just grab anything,
Yeah.
whatever you
Yeah,
can.
I hear you, but I mean, even our own societies. I mean, there's a whole. It is so ingrained in the U.S. that there is an entire coliseum. I believe it's the Los Angeles Lakers that actually is named after crypto
Oh,
now.
and, and, and
That's how
okay,
ingrained it
okay.
is in
You know,
society.
why? You know why, Mark? It's because the suckers that buy the cryptocurrency, and they are suckers, sent the money to these crypto kings that have so much money that they
Right,
could actually afford to purchase the name of a stadium. It
right,
is a complete Ponzi scheme. Notice that Madoff did really well, and everybody believed in Madoff. Oh, Madoff, Madoff. You
right.
guys may not remember Madoff, but 50
Yes, I do.
billion
Yeah,
dollars.
I remember Madoff.
50 billion went to Madoff in a big Ponzi scheme. Now we have another Ponzi scheme. It's called crypto. The people on the top, Mark, do very well.
No,
And
agreed.
they advertise all the time. Oh, Come to crypto. Come to crypto. Hey, let me show you how to get rich in crypto. Okay, they're at the top of the pyramid. The
I
people at
mean,
the bottom
I agree
get
with
their
you,
butt
and the
handed
crypto
to
and
them.
the
Okay,
crypto and some of
and
the
that is the
NFTs
reality
have
of
some
the
of the
market.
most silliest names, and I don't know how they even make money with names like
NFT,
the hippos and stuff like that.
NFT and NIL are actually legitimate things that they're doing. But I wouldn't invest in it because it's crazy. But then there's a possibility you actually can make money in an NFT, which is a non-fungible token. It's
Exactly.
basically buying. There's some really good stuff on the internet that you
It's
actually
a
buy.
continuation of the
You're
theory
basically
that
buying
there
a
is a
copyrighted
sucker
book.
born every minute.
But I
You
agree. I
have
agree
some
with
kind of
Sasha,
an
man.
NCF, there will be a sucker.
You know, the thing is, if you're a sucker, if you want to sucker into crypto, go ahead. If you want to own a cryptocurrency and sell it to the suckers, you're going to get rich. Okay, and that's the reality of it.
Absolutely.
No, I
And
hear
this is
you, but I wanted to get to something. I wanted to get to
oh, we're
Shaquille
doing
because
this
I'm sure Shaquille's got
38
some thoughts.
years.
But I wanted to get to something that he's very much big on, and I was talking about Venezuela and
Shaquille's
everything.
busy
And
making
I'm
money.
loving this conversation, so I want to hear his thoughts. One about crypto, but because I think he's gonna love this term and everything, because apparently, certain countries that are more socialist oriented, like Venezuela, are trying to appeal to the left in the United States and to Europe and other places. So a LGBT activist who works with Amnesty International, Yandre Velasquez, says the government is using a progressive narrative as a possibility for strategic alliances, though it's not actually enacting progressive policies to match. And she said that Madero is essentially, and this is the word that I think you're going to love, woke washing, which is a term used to describe corporations advertising the appearance of social consciousness, meaning that they act like they've got social consciousness, but they really don't have any social consciousness. So they're just doing this new word, which I'm loving, and I think you'll love it as well, which is woke washing. And I know that you oftentimes talk about the woke part of society. So what is your thoughts about entire countries and maybe even parts of the U.S. doing what is now called woke washing? Shaquille.
I mean, I don't really have much of a thought or feeling on Venezuela doing anything.
You're not a Venezuelan fan? I thought you were a big fan of the Venezuelan government.
Yeah.
How well are they doing? Why are we listening to
sounds
anything
lovely.
that comes
It'd be interesting
from
to see.
But it's basically what you've described that the U.S. is doing. So that's what I thought you might.
Interesting to see how many people who claim to support socialism in Canada and in California and New York would actually like to go and live in Venezuela. Again, I think that people, especially young people, what they're really asking for is, better funding and access to tertiary education, better funding and access to healthcare, those sorts of things. I don't think that they're really asking for socialism. I don't think that they really know what it means. But if they ever got it, they would hate it.
But I mean, isn't that what they've been doing for a while? Because basically, what the article also said is that Venezuela is one of a long line of far left authoritarian regimes that have tried to staunch their losses in Washington by appealing to America's progressive movements. And you go all the way back to '66 when Fidel Castro's Cuba hosted the Tricontinental Conference, where the agenda explicitly stated that they were supporting the civil rights movement.
Why would
Mark,
anybody follow Venezuela? Venezuela is a failed state. It's stupid.
You can try to appeal to the American left as much as you like. I don't see big lines of people trying to enter Venezuela. I don't see a whole heap of people trying to go to Venezuela for a family holiday.
No, and they're probably not trying to go to either Zimbabwe or Uganda, because Uganda had Idi Amin and Zimbabwe had Robert Mugabe, and part of the way that they tried to justify their brutality was that they were going against European colonialism and apartheid. So that's part of how they tried to justify it, and that's even what goes on to this day as well.
How does Venezuela be a model for anything? They basically took an economy that was working, they screwed it up because they brought in their commie hippie pinko freak people. And now why would we even bother to listen to them until they clean up their own act? There's no reason. Colombia has actually gone ahead of Venezuela. It's ridiculous. And oddly enough, the second largest country that watches our show is Brazil. And I don't even know why.
Well, I've got some Brazilian friends. I may be trying to push some Brazilian people there.
Venezuela has this incredible oil reserve. Yeah. There is so much wealth and so much potential in Venezuela. And it used to be one of the wealthiest countries in South America. Now, because of government mismanagement and because of people thinking that somehow you can just vote for the richer people to contribute more. And when we mean more, we mean we want them to pay their fair share. When we say their fair share, we want them to pay everything, right? And that somehow is going to bring you to some sort of utopia. So the American leftists and Australian leftists, for that matter, who seem to make the same sort of suggestions in America, and then they try and throw up things like racism and transgenderism and all these different things to justify those positions, should have a really close look at places like Venezuela and understand that that is what you are going to end up with if your plans are successful. So if you are a Democrat in America, you should thank your lucky stars that Republicans exist.
Well, speaking of Republicans existing and all of that, and I mentioned his impact or lack thereof on two races, West Virginia and Nebraska and everything. But apparently, and I'd love to hear both of y'all's thoughts about this, Elon Musk, you remember he's the guy that's buying Twitter and everything, said that he would reverse Twitter's ban on former President Donald Trump, articulating for the first time his stance on one of the most consequential decisions before him at the social media site he is acquiring. I do think it was not correct to ban Donald Trump. I think that was a mistake. He said in an event Tuesday hosted by the Financial Times, it alienated a large part of the country and did not ultimately result in Donald Trump not having a voice. The ban, he added, was a morally bad decision, to be clear, and foolish in the extreme, and all of that. So he's saying, hey, look, I'm gearing to bring Trump back to Twitter. So what are your thoughts about this? Because apparently he's come out publicly and said as soon as he's got control, he's going to let Trump come back to Twitter. So what's your thoughts, Nick? And
I'm going to disappear for 5 minutes. I'll just quickly respond first. I think that everybody has a right to express their views and to be heard. And trying to silence somebody, it doesn't work. It's a very, very poor way of doing things. And what has happened is it's not just with Twitter. It's with Google changing their algorithms, all that sort of stuff. Facebook changing things. Is that you've alienated close to half the population, not just in the United States, but also the half of the world's population that votes center right. We want to be able to hear from candidates. We want to know what their thoughts are, their feelings, and oftentimes people on the center right will vote center left. People on the center left will sometimes vote center right. But when they don't get to hear the comments in the first place, that just looks like one group with political power bullying the other. I think it was a very, very poor move. And I think the big tech, hopefully this will be a catalyst for them to change and to realize that that's not really the role that they should be playing in our societies.
I agree with you on that and everything.
We'll have to get rid of Shaquille and his opinion. It doesn't count anyway. So the thing is, we need to listen to my opinion, which does count. So,
what is your opinion, Nick?
Trump and Twitter. Unfortunately, I tend to agree with them on this one. The thing is, Mark, I would, the problem of free speech, and we have a free speech society. We have a First Amendment to freedom of speech, is that you basically have to allow people to say things, even if they're crazy thoughts. In your opinion, it may not be crazy to that particular person, but they certainly have the right to express whatever opinion that they might have. So when Twitter shut them down, I don't even know what they shut them down for. Really don't, because if you don't have an opportunity to listen to them, then who knows what it is. But I think it was a bad decision on Twitter. However, now that we're in media, Mark, I found out that your media corporations shut people down all the time. Matter of fact, for some reason, we're not going through Facebook. Now, I had problems yesterday with Facebook. They shut me down again on a lot of the redistribution of groups. The good news is that Roku, we go right on and no one shuts us down, to my knowledge. In other words,
no, Roku will not be shut down. But I do have a question that I think Sasha can ask and everything, which is that, historically speaking, there have been bubbles. There have been economic bubbles and things along those lines. And definitely the tech companies have had bubbles in the past. And apparently there is articles now coming out, particularly like in publications like the Washington Post and others, that while they were the darlings of the pandemic economy, now with skyrocketing inflation, that war that's going on in the Ukraine, uncertainty about what the heck is going on in China, that the big tech behemoths or the big tech giants are dragging down the stock market while Silicon Valley startups are laying off employees. So we could be in the middle of a tech bubble, because they said that Apple, despite record revenues, went from being worth $3 trillion in January to $2.5 trillion in Monday. So they So they lost, 0.5 trillion. That's a pretty good money. And Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, and Alphabet have all lost more than 20% of their value this year. And Netflix has lost 70%. And Facebook, speaking of Facebook is down 40% this year. And it told its employees recently that it would freeze hiring, which in the tech industry will mean an all but certain drop in overall head count. So, Sasha, what is your take? Because it seems like a lot of these companies that used to be the darlings and are the big companies in the tech world are suffering some serious losses.
When you're talking about tech stocks or high-tech stocks or so on, you have to clearly divide the substantial companies like Apple, when you mentioned the Facebook, the Netflix, and others, from all kind of garbage, crypto, Coinbase, and all other stuff. Because these companies, even if they lost, say, 20, 25%, even 50% in some cases of their value, there is a good chance that it will take some time and they will regain that lost value and some. Now, these other stocks, so-called crypto and all kind of other garbage, they will never, ever regain whatever they lost. In fact, I'm much concerned if they will remain even where they are. Let's see, Coinbase went down from $400 a share to $53 a share. I don't see any reason why it cannot go down to $12 a share, to tell the truth. I really don't see any reason, because if you will take their valuation, if you will take their fundamentals of this company, their cash flow, the profit per share, and anything else, they cannot withstand even $12 a share. They cannot show for it.
I hear you. Nick, just really quickly, because one of the other companies that they talked about as well, and it was apparently had a lot of its money from foreign sources, namely the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and they did it via the Japanese firm SoftBank. But they were also saying that companies such as Uber and WeWorks, and I remember WeWorks had actually been in trouble before, that they might be having some troubles as well. So I was just wondering your thoughts about some of these companies that also might be getting some of their money from other parts of the globe, and some of that not going all that well either.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I tend to agree with Sasha that the solid stocks that you're discussing, like Apple, Facebook, Google, et cetera, even Netflix, will come back. The cryptocurrency, you have to recall back around the year 2000, there was these .com stocks. I don't remember.
It was another one of the busts.
All right. But everybody believed, if it had .com behind it, it was worth a lot of money. The guy that made a lot of money was a guy named, Mark Cuban, because he sold his .com at an unbelievable valuation to Yahoo. In other words, it didn't make any sense at all. His broadband.com wasn't worth, he had 36 million revenue, and he had a valuation of $4.5 billion. That's how he became a billionaire. He won the lottery. It wasn't like the guy's super smart. He was at the right place at the right time. Okay, that was the .com boom. But I can tell you in my practice, I had guys come in, say, well, I'm worth 80 million. They showed me all the .com stocks they own. You know what? They came in 6 months later, they were completely broke. That is what do they call it? The cryptocurrency of today. It's the .com boom. It's all, and I've talked to these people all the time. Oh, you got blockchain and cryptocurrency and all this other stuff. It is a complete fraud. The only question is we're just waiting for it to bust. And I've done this before where I was working with some of our actuaries and we saw these frauds out there. We said, and I used to go to them every year. I said, when is this going to bust? Just give it some time, It took 3 years and the whole thing just went completely apart. So that's a bust. But see, Apple is not a bust. Even though it goes down, they have a solid asset base to draw off of, which is they're making their crazy Apple phones and technology. Right. So Facebook's not a bust. Netflix isn't, but
no, they're saying that Netflix is actually betting big on gaming. So after announcing his intention to explore the video game space last July, they've definitely hired new executives in that space. And apparently they're looking at content creation, kind of like what we're doing, because they said that they will be taking the popular tabletop card game, Exploding Kittens, and producing both a TV show and a mobile game from that.
This is going
but the one thing that they won't do, is to stop being woke, which is what's caused so many of their viewers to go, you know what, sick of being lectured to, so I'm going to cancel my subscription. So
I mean, do they
people
have a lot of woke shows? I don't have a Netflix.
so the
I don't have
people
a
on
Netflix
go,
account. So what kind of shows do they have? I'm asking you, Shaquille, because I don't know.
Wake me up.
The people at Netflix have heard all their subscribers saying, "Look, we're sick and tired of this. Can you please stop? Stop it with this stuff." And Netflix has gone, "Well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to not give our customers what they want, and then wonder why our share price has fallen 60%. I just can't think of why." That's what I'm saying, Shaquille. Like, inform me. Let's introduce computer games onto the Netflix platform, because that worked really well for Yahoo, didn't it? You know how they shut down theirs.
Did it work for them?
People are going to pay a subscription to play video games, like Google Play Store, where you can actually get a subscription and that allows you to play a lot more computer games.
Well, I'm thinking that Peter.
Well done. That's.
I'm thinking that Peter, but I'm thinking that Peter and maybe even the some of the animal rights people are going to be upset. I just told you the name of the game, and I don't know anything about the game, but it's called Exploding Kittens. So I'm thinking that the game actually shows you kittens exploding. That seems logical to me and everything. I don't know the game, but I'm thinking that somewhere in the game, the kittens actually explode.
The games are a whole different industry.
Firstly,
just remember, that'll never work.
Firstly, Marco, let me just say, if kittens really are exploding, that's not the sort of game I would play. But when was the last time? I mean, obviously I'm a bit younger than you guys. I like playing computer games when I was 13. When was the last time, Sasha? When was the last time you jumped online and played Doom 3D or what? Call of Duty. You've been doing that lately, Sasha? Nick, you've been playing whatever the
Honestly,
new
I've never played it.
I can play chess on chess.com.
I play chess.
Has that been played, Mark? You've been playing, Mario.
Well, like I said, my brother has played Call of Duty. I don't play Call of Duty, but no, I know some people in their 40s or 50s that play it.
People are they actually pitching themselves to the 13-year-olds? The people that are already woke. I mean, this is just ridiculous. It's
but Shaquille, you said that a couple of times, and I'm asking Shaquille.
Actually asked for, rather than trying to bring all this other shit on.
No, but Shaquille, I said that a couple of times, and all I'm asking you is, to those that are watching, because I don't have a Netflix account. I used to, but I don't currently. For those that are watching, can you give us some examples of some of the shows that Netflix is doing that are so-called woke or politically oriented or whatever? Because I don't even know what Netflix has got. So you said that a couple times, and I'm going like, I don't even know what the shows are.
I think Ozark is pretty interesting show, and they have a new.
Which show is it?
Ozark.
Ozark, yeah, Ozark.
Yeah, they have a series, but I haven't seen it yet. I like Netflix because, generally speaking, you can find almost any movie, like old movies if you want, or documentaries, or history movie, or so on. And they have a pretty good library. I think the only weakness, in my opinion,
not anymore, Sasha. Not anymore. See if you can find a Charles Bronson film on there. You can, and don't forget also that what you've got available in the US and Canada is not necessarily what they've got available in other countries.
Maybe.
So shows like Fawlty Towers, which is one of the great British comedies, isn't on Netflix in most countries. You can't access it. It used to be there. It's not there now. Law and Order is not available on Netflix. It's available on Amazon Prime. I mean, there's a lot of shows and a lot of like how can you not have
Law and Order? That's not on Netflix in Australia.
How can you not have any like Pink Panther films, or if you're talking about older films, like Wizard of Oz? Like, how can you not have any of those sorts of films on your platform? But instead, you've got these films about there's systemic racism in the United States, as if that's going to be of real interest to somebody living in Sydney.
Well, like I said, I'm not. We'll have to check out what they've got and everything. Hey, Nick, I did have one other quick question because we're almost done with the show and everything. And this actually comes to our area here in Durham and all of that. And I was just wondering your take on this from a legal standpoint, because apparently at the graduation of Duke, which we just had recently, they said that the speech, I believe it was the speech from the major, might have been the student body and all of that it had actually been plagiarized, and that's become like a big story and all of that because they are investigating this plagiarized grad speech and all of that. So I was wondering, when you were in school, how common was it for these speeches to be plagiarized? Because that's been actually getting national, I think to some degree even international news, because Duke is a internationally known university. So this is definitely one of those times where folks have been cheating and been caught at it. So what's your thoughts on that, and was it common?
Very rare. Okay, in other words, plagiarism and cheating were just very, very rare. I imagine some people do it. I was too intellectually arrogant to actually plagiarize or cheat. That's the bottom line. So I would never look at somebody else's. This is how arrogant I was, Mark. I would never look at anyone else's test because I always thought I'm the smartest guy in the room. Why would I bother with these other idiots? But with that, the smartest guy in the room was Enron. And they went under. But this Netflix thing is very interesting because they were the fastest growing stock for the last 10 years. The handwriting was on the wall when Disney came out with Disney Plus, Paramount Plus. Acorn is out there. You can buy. I have all these subscriptions.
Apple Plus,
Amazon
Apple
Prime,
Plus.
and believe it or not, Pod TV. Okay, this is a weird thing. We actually compete now with Netflix. How do we compete with Netflix? Okay, I'm sitting downstairs and I'm bored to tears looking at their stupid movies because some of their stuff they come out with trash. But tonight, I want to listen to Sasha's talk about the stock market. To me, that's more interesting.
Oh, it's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to it as well. And then we've also got some interesting guests at the online dinner party. So we're looking for some great conversation. Even continue on the network. And we're launching a new show today later on. Jen is doing it called I think actually you're gonna love this title and all Shaquille, but it's a new show being launched because she has actually had some political overtones and she considers herself quote unquote woke. So Jen is launching the Accidental Woke podcast. So that'll be on at noon. So in about an hour, because I've already uploaded it, and she's done interviews with people, including some people connected with Hollywood and other places. And I think this one will be looking at some of the stereotypes that exist in certain communities and why those stereotypes exist.
Here's the reality with Netflix. We will compete with Netflix. Okay.
Oh, totally.
We're a big problem competitor because they literally spend not millions, but billions of dollars on their programs. And some of their programs, unfortunately, are trash, and we don't. Okay. So all of a sudden, and I'm serious, like in the evening, I'm going like, okay, what am I going to watch tonight? Well, Netflix becomes a drum. In other words, the same type of program over again. So I want to listen to something different. So I actually switch on tonight. I watch some of the Pod TV shows because I'm going, at least they're more interesting than Netflix, which is
no, I totally agree with you on that.
But
And we've done a great job of that. And by the way, that speech that was copied, just as we wind down, because we only got another minute or two to go. And of course, we got to have those people running around as our closing, that we is also our opening and all of that. But that being said, apparently the speech was copied from one of your favorite places. Apparently they're thinking that it was copied from Harvard University's speech from 2014, which had nearly 4 million views on YouTube. So it would be very easy to get that and to copy it and all of that. So I know that you're not a big Harvard fan, and apparently this particular person, who I believe is of Indian descent, because it was the class of 2022 speaker, Prior Parkesh, and they gave the speech of Sarah Abashir, apparently, and that is what is going on. So if you're going to copy, I don't know that you want to copy something as obvious as Harvard.
Well, obviously it was a pretty good speech because it had 4 million views. So the person did do their homework. But unfortunately, what they should do is they said, and now I'm going to quote from some statements made by the Harvard thing, et cetera. In other words, just give credit rather than try to attribute like I'm invented it myself.
Exactly.
There might be some legal issues and there might not. In other words, with the things copyrighted, there's ethical issues. Obviously, it's an interesting dilemma that somebody was that a student who did that?
It was a student.
Okay, obviously, right. Yeah, so that doesn't surprise me. But wow, that keeps the world interesting. In the meantime, I'm going to wait to listen to the words of wisdom on modern investing, which is getting its own following. It's hilarious because the thing is, the predictions have been relatively correct into the market space, and
I mean, which one do you want to listen to? Do you want to listen to Sasha and Shaquille when he comes on, or do you want to listen to those people from CNN and Fox? I think that Shaquille and Sasha have better advice and better things that I'd rather listen to. So I'd rather listen to Sasha because Sasha's great.
Sasha and Peter, they actually do the trades. They're actually trading. In other words, so they're putting their money where their mouth is. A lot of these things you see on CNBC, they're not doing anything. They're just people talking about the stock market. They don't have any money in it or out of it or anything like that. So it is a real big difference. And that's why I think if you get kids investing and it's their money and they take a loss and it affects them, it becomes more real, Mark, than if you listen to some professor talk about the stock market. The minute you put your money up, oh, that's a whole different. It's a whole different game. It's like playing chess. You play for rating points is one thing, When you put money in a tournament, that's a whole different game, baby. Whole different game.
You know this famous story. It was well, he passed away many years ago. There was a Soviet grandmaster Levenfish. He wrote a fantastic endgame book with
I remember Levenfish, yeah.
with Smyslov. It was
Yes.
one of the Bibles of rook
Right.
engines. So he was lecturing at this central club in Moscow. And after the lecture, one amateur came up to him and asked him that he loves chess and he's playing so much, but he's looking for ways really improve his level of chess. What is the quickest way of doing that? And he says, you play a ruble a game and you'll see how you'll improve. Play a ruble a game.
I agree. Hey,
No, I
Sasha,
agree with that as well.
all
But it looks like it's
when
time
when
for
you
us
got
to.
skin in the game, it's a different game, baby.
Yeah.
It's a different
It looks
game.
like it's time for us to get on out of here. And it also looks like Sasha having work done on his house because I'm hearing background noise and all of that. So it's time for us to get on out of here, and we will be back on tomorrow. And we will definitely have more engaging conversation and even other things going on in the world, including what's happened there in Russia and the Ukraine. So we'll catch y'all on tomorrow. I don't think Steve will be with us on tomorrow, but on Friday, he'll be coming at us from PBS. So look forward to seeing y'all on tomorrow. And let's watch these people get on out of here and get on out of here with them. So y'all take it easy, and we'll catch y'all on Thursday. And of course,
Bye-bye.
we'll catch Pastor later on the investment show because that'll be coming up very shortly, as well as our new show that'll be airing at 12. So let's watch Jen and Accidentally Woke.